It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Hey, it's Marissa. Welcome back to Finnegan Fish House. I thought it would be really cool to share a recent experiment Dwayne and I have been doing at our home. So over the last year, Dwayne and I decided it would be cool to experiment with different water sources and how that would affect a plant's health and overall condition of the soil. So last year we purchased 2 dwarf fiddle leaf figs and used the same exact soil, kept them in the same exact conditions. The only thing we changed in the experiment was water sources. This is the result of using fortified fish tank water versus filtered fridge water. The soil used was an organic potting mix mixed with perlite. Both plants were maintained side by side in the same environment with equal amounts of light exposure. A special consideration is also that both plants received the same amount of neglect. I've shared in a past video that I am healing from depression and anxiety, which did accelerate the results as sometimes the plants would go longer than they should have between waterings. All right. So let's talk what happened and the major differences between these 2 plants that contributed to both the downfall and the rising for these 2 beauties. So the first thing that I have to say with this plant was the soil and all the life that resided in that soil when I first potted the plant has been completely wiped out. And that is for a few different reasons. One, I do believe that the plant consumed almost all the nutrients in the soil and pretty much got everything it possibly could from the soil itself before it completely turned yellow and lost all its leaves. So why that happened? When we dechlorinated our water by using our fridge, we were also stripping a lot of the minerals that are important for plant health by using that filtration system. I knew off the bat that we did not want to use chlorinated water. The reason being, chlorinated water is great in keeping waterways fresh and healthy for us to consume, but our tap water here also contains a compound called chloramine, which is a derivative of chlorine, where basically that chloramine keeps the waterways fresh, but it can also completely strip the soil of essential microorganisms and essential life to helping plants survive but also thrive. We actually are no longer giving it just the filtered water because it just got down to a stem, and these 2 new leaves are actually new growth from us using our magical water. This pot, we were continuously inoculating the soil with life, but also additional nutrients. With our plant tonic, we actually take the wastewater from our fish tanks around the home and we fortify it with additional nutrients. So there's not only all those beneficial nutrients and microorganisms coming from the fish tank itself, we're fortifying it with additional nutrients such as iron, mycorrhiza, seaweed, Epsom salt, and so all of those factors contributes to the health and overall success of all the plants in our home, because every time we're watering this plant, we're introducing new unused resources for the plant to thrive. And that's something that you want to do in all container gardening that I think gets overlooked or not frequently talked about enough, is that you always want to be microdosing it with nutrients nutrients and life, especially since a lot of the container plants that we keep indoors and outdoors have a period of dryness with the soil. I think it's a great tip for almost any plant owner to let their pots dry out, or I'm sorry, let the soil dry out in the pots in between every watering. And that's so your plant's root systems can absorb the water, take it in, and use all the nutrients it needs to. But just like in plants outside, it doesn't rain all the time to keep a healthy plant. There's periods of rain and then the soil dries out and then it rains again. And that's what we're really trying to mimic indoors every time we're watering our plants. With this plant, we were watering it with water, but that water that we were inputting into this pot was completely stripped of minerals and beneficial nutrients that the plant could then absorb and maintain its growth cycle. This one right here has seriously only lost a couple of leaves since we first got it. This one, on the other hand, lost all of its leaves completely. They at one point just, it's like the plant gave up all of its leaves, and it had quite a few still, turned completely yellow and just fell off. Mind blown. And at that point there was no leaves left on this plant. It wasn't until recently when we transitioned to giving it our plant tonic that these two leaves came up, and we basically brought this plant back to life, because without a shadow of a doubt, if we continued to water it with the filtered fridge water, it wouldn't have come back at all and it would have died. So as you can see, there's a complete difference in the plant structures above, but I think it's also a good idea to look at what's below the surface. I just know from over the years in experimenting with our plant tonic and using it on different plants and bringing things back to life that it really helps to have that mycorrhiza inside of our plant tonic. If you're not familiar with that ingredient, basically it's a fungi. We're inoculating the soil with every time we feed our plants, and that's because this fungi in particular is kind of like a best buddy to a plant's root system. And actually I shared a video in the beginning of our YouTube plant journey talking about how this fungi in particular actually helps plants' root systems find like neighboring family members and helps other plants within the vicinity, if they're dying, access more bioavailable nutrients. I sped up this clip of taking the plant out of the pot because it was a serious struggle. After seeing the roots with paint from the pot intact to the bottom and finding it super hard to remove, I hypothesized that the plant started to leach elements from the paint for survival. The second plant did not have paint, nor was it nearly as hard to remove. So what happened? When a plant dries out in between waterings, beneficial living soil organisms start to die off. As we watered the plant with fish tank water, we were replenishing colonies of living microorganisms and nutrients, but as we watered the other with water stripped of essential life and minerals, we were depleting the soil of life necessary for great plant health. My depression kicked in, which increased periods of drought and the die-off of essential microorganisms. Eventually, the plant receiving the filtered fridge water used all the nutrients in the soil, and I'm certain any beneficial microbes died in the year and a half we ran this experiment. What's the difference between dirt and soil? Life. This is why using aquarium water to water plants is so restorative and magical. Our 3.5-year system is like a well-aged oak barrel, and the water that runs through it becomes liquid gold for all of our plants. Each time we use this water, we are basically microdosing the plants with essential life. This actually makes a lot of sense since we're trying to mimic ideal conditions in nature when tending to our indoor plants. I bought this fiddle leaf fig when it was on clearance because it wasn't doing really well. There was a lot of brown dead leaves, and a lot of the bigger, what should have been healthier leaves were in bad condition. So I took off a lot of the dead. When it rains in nature, the water fertilizes root systems as decaying plant material, animal excrement, and insects get washed into the soil. Aquarium water works similarly for plants as the fish, snails, and worms work symbiotically with bacteria and fungi. So basically, the secret to bringing dying plants back to life is life. As always, thank you so much for watching our channel. We really feel this is our life passion and look forward to sharing future content with you. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share our channel so we can continue to grow. And we look forward to hearing more from the plant and fish community about what you guys have experienced and how we can all learn from one another. Thank you.